Whether to go with 4K resolution is a topic that's been discussed and debated really since about 2015, when 4K started to become fairly mainstream. And I don't doubt now that 4K is of course the future. I mean, we're already at a point where I think 20%, or certainly nearly 20% of US households own a 4K television. So you could say that all content, if possible, should be delivered in 4K. But that's really my question today. You know, is there really that much point for YouTube content yet to be delivered in 4K? A few points just to sort of lay out from the start. You know, if you've got the resource, if you've got the time, if you've got the hardware, and if you've got the money, why not? You can pump as much computing power into it as you wish. You have all the right gear to do it simply at the best quality. Why not do it? Why not do 8K as a lot of people are starting to do now instead? But that's not the case for all of us, is it? So really, I think there needs to be a kind of discussion around what is actually required on YouTube and what you can realistically do. I'm talking more about the delivery of video here. I'm not talking so much about the filming, even though I do mention a few points on cameras at the start. The good thing about Full HD, so 1080p, is that it really has matured now. You can get really good quality Full HD cameras at a low price. 4K is still developing, it's still maturing, and there are a lot of cameras out there that claim to do 4K, and the actual quality of the 4K output leaves a lot to be desired. It's just not up to the standards that you might be hoping for. Now, of course, there's the marketing side, something I mentioned in quite a few videos because it always kind of gets me, the marketing side of things. 4K is still something that is seen as a premium product, and as such, it is sold as a premium product. So you will pay more if you buy a camera that does 4K, even though the benefits of that are not necessarily as great as you might think. Storage. Let's talk a little bit about storage. The footage for 4K footage gets big quickly. A ProRes HQ 4K 50p or 60p file runs at about 1.2 gigabits per second, 1.2 or 1.3 gigabits per second. Even H.264 runs usually at least 150 megabits per second. So we're talking a lot of storage. A file, you know, a kind of standard YouTube video, let's say a 15-minute YouTube video, I don't know how long this one will end up being, but a standard YouTube video will end up being in the region of 100 to 150 gigabytes. That's a lot of data to be moving around. Still, today, it's a lot of information to be shifting about. And that just gets cumbersome. It gets costly. If you're out in the field, moving 4K footage is just not realistic yet. Full HD footage, more likely to come in at 50 megabits per second top quality, broadcast quality. In fact, you can get 4K footage, Full HD footage at 50 megabits per second, or alternatively, sort of a lower bit rate, so 8 megabits per second, that you can use specifically for transmitting wirelessly. So if you are in the field and you need to get something back to base, or you need to get something transmitted quickly, ENG use, broadcast use, then that's going to be important to you. 4K is just not really that appropriate for that type of transmission of information. Okay, so the demands on the hardware itself makes editing it a struggle. It's fine if you've got endless money, but it forces people to upgrade certain pieces of hardware that they wouldn't have otherwise upgraded. And all these businesses are kind of tied together, and they all kind of link into each other. So one part of the industry promotes 4K, and that means that graphics cards get upgraded, and other people's computers need upgrading. It all forces people to upgrade their laptops or their computers, possibly a little bit earlier than they would have otherwise done. Now, it's a bit of a blind view, this, because I'm someone who's quite into tech, and a lot of the people who discuss this subject are into tech. What you have to realize is that if you're into this sort of thing, you're in this unrealistic bubble where you kind of are happy to do that. You're happy to upgrade your equipment. But if you're someone who just wants to create content, you may be a little bit younger, you don't work full time or something, you just can't afford to be doing that type of thing all the time. It's just not that practical or financially viable to upgrade your kit all the time. So working with Full HD is quite possible now on most laptops, most fairly recent laptops, even second-hand laptops that you'll buy, second-hand MacBooks that you'll buy, PCs, all that type of stuff will support Full HD quite happily. 4K is so much more demanding. And then you've got the receiving side as well. People playing 4K. People are still using older technology. We're not all using the best technology. We don't all have the money that is promoted in videos on YouTube, where people sort of just say, oh yeah, we've got this latest kit, we're doing this. You look at Linus Tech Tip. This is a company that has endless cash. Seems to have endless cash. I mean, obviously they have the budget for everything, and they are a business after all, but they have a lot of money to put into this. I'm an individual. I'm one person doing this. I don't have all that money to put into it. So people receiving your content can't always play it. They don't always have the PC power available to play that content. Okay, bandwidth. What about bandwidth? Simple fact, a lot of people don't yet have the bandwidth to be able to stream 4K. Now onto the contentious issue. Can you actually see a difference? I watch 50% of YouTube content on my phone. Looking at my own channel's YouTube stats, 51% of the content watched is on a mobile device. So by a mobile device, I mean a tablet, which is admittedly a larger screen most of the time, or a phone. So if you're talking about a phone and you were to switch between 4K and a Full HD video, I'd say that you're pretty hard pressed to tell a difference there. And then you've got the argument around distance from screens. I'll put a graph up on this on the screen now, and you can figure this one out for yourself. I find it a little bit confusing to work out, but it does make some sense and really suggests that unless you're sat incredibly close to your enormous 4K display, you can't actually see a difference anyway, because the pixel density is such that your eyes can't distinguish it. In summary then, I have never watched a video on YouTube ever and thought to myself, oh, wouldn't it be great if this was in 4K? That's really what this boils down to, isn't it? If there's 4K on now, I'll switch to it. Or to be honest, if I full screen it because I'm watching it on a 4K monitor, it will switch to 4K anyway. I never really notice. I think it's more important to pay attention to getting the lighting right, the filming you're actually doing as a creator, than worrying about delivering this stuff in 4K. It's just not needed yet. People mention rankings. Not too sure about that. I think that's a load of bollocks as far as YouTube rankings of 4K content. I know there's an argument also about higher bit rate being driven into 4K content, and therefore the Full HD version looks better, and that might have some truth behind it. I might look into that in a future video, but right now I find the Full HD bitrate of YouTube to be quite sufficient for the type of content that's being delivered. Films, I agree with it. Films and proper productions like that, TV series, proper productions, I think should, where possible, be delivered in 4K. It is a better experience, and if you've got a large screen, there are some benefits of that. I'm not talking about high dynamic range here, of course. That's a different issue altogether. That's a good thing. I don't think that subscribers have ever been lost to channels not delivering in 4K, not putting their content out in 4K. If people want to do it, of course they can. If people got the money to do it, of course they can. But I personally only reach for that kind of 4K option every so often when I'm kind of when I feel in the mood or feel like waiting for my video to render for about 6 hours rather than 20 minutes. But if you've got the time to do it, go ahead. I just don't think it's necessary yet on YouTube. What do you think? Do you always want videos to be in 4K when you look at YouTube? Do you actually even care? Does it matter? Do you notice? What do you watch on? These are the kind of questions that matter, really. What do you actually watch on? Because I would like to bet that most of the time it's a mobile device. And with a device that's this size, I don't think that 4K is going to make too much difference.